I sat down and watched over 100 ultra successful people on a quest to find the answer to one simple question. Everyone from famous sports stars, writers, actors, singers, entrepreneurs, and YouTube stars. And what I discovered could be the key to unlocking your success. So in this video, I share what I learned and the 5 common threads that separate them from us. And to be honest, this info could change your life like it did mine. So let's get into it. But before I forget, this video is part 2 of a 5-part series. You can check out the first video in this series up here. And also I've pinned it in the comments below. Okay, so the second success X factor you're gonna have to develop if you wanna become ultra successful is your network and its effects. So what's the first thing you think of when I mention networking? Is it cliches like your network is your net worth or things like BNI? Because honestly, that was the first thing I thought of. Well, it wasn't until I watched all these interviews I realized how little I knew about the value of network, especially if you want to become ultra successful. While very few of the interviews I watched actually directly attribute networking to their success, almost all of them anecdotally hinted it through stories. Did you know that YouTube, the world's second largest search engine, and probably where you're watching this video now, may not have existed if it wasn't for the power of network and its flow-on effects? In an interview I watched with Stephen Chen, one of the co-founders of YouTube, he hinted that if it weren't for his relationship with Roloff Botha at Sequoia Capital, who he used to work with at PayPal, there is a very good chance that YouTube would not be what it is today. Roloff himself mentioned that he was shown PayPal by a PayPal colleague. And to be fair, most of the venture community at the time thought Sequoia was insane for even contemplating investing in YouTube. But in Roloff's own words, because of the history at PayPal, we knew that we could work with the team and trust each other. And a little bit like art or music, somehow the pieces fit together beautifully and it just resonates. Think about it. How awesome would it be just to have a network of people you could just pick up the phone, talk to them, and remove any barrier that's in your way? That appears to be the end result and why networks are so powerful for these super successful people. But I think for most of us, how we view networking and building a network is fundamentally flawed. And this could be the thing that's holding you back, and here's why. While in most of these interviews, it appears on the surface that all these people just had magical networks that they could just lean on whenever they wanted, I just got the feeling that most of these uber successful people just had a natural knack for building solid personal relationships while having a professional network in the back of their minds the whole time. And unfortunately, this is where I think structured networking falls over. Some of the best, most effective, and powerful networks are created on the basketball court, or over a beer at a bar after a function, at a family or friends gathering, at a card game, or at the water cooler or lunchroom. In one interview I watched, Jason Calacanis, who is a serial entrepreneur turned angel investor, attributes a lot of the access he got to early deals in Trello and Uber was due to the network and connections he made playing poker in Los Angeles. I myself have made some amazing connections across the poker table, more so than any networking event I've ever attended. The thing is, I didn't hear a single successful person in any of the interviews say that structured networking was the reason they have success today. But I did hear the overwhelming majority say they had a friend they used to work with and that's the reason they're successful. Or a former teammate whose wives are friends who happens to have a husband who's an NBA coach. Or they used to hang out with the brother of a famous actor or entrepreneur. I heard a lot of anecdotes like that when watching these interviews, so in my opinion, it makes sense to focus on building those organic and serendipitous connections and network. So how do we build these genuine networks that are built on personal relationships? Well, like any skill, you need to have solid foundations. And one of these is to start having one-way conversations. You heard that right. One-way conversations that focus on the person you're speaking to and not you. A lot of people have a very bad habit of speaking about themselves too much and not learning enough about the person they're speaking with. And let's be honest, no one wants to hear about you, so you need to make it your mission to learn as much about the person you're speaking to as possible. And the best way to do this, I've found, is to ask open-ended questions. And an open-ended question is simply a question that can't be answered with a yes or a no. So if someone you meet and want to build a relationship mentions they went out on the boat this weekend, Asking them follow-up open-ended questions about the boat is a great way to build genuine rapport and your network. So, recapping, your goal in any conversation is to learn as much about the other person as possible. Of course, you need them to know what you do, but briefly talk about what you do, try and keep it as brief as possible, and move on back to them. But to do this effectively, you need to master weaving in what you do through examples and stories. While it's very important to have a standard, brief, elevated pitch of what you do, I actually think one of the best ways to get people to understand what you do is to tell stories about what you do and anecdotes what you do in a way that they'll understand and in a way that weaves into the current conversation. So let's say you're talking to someone and the conversation about boats comes up again. What's more memorable? Oh, I used to do SEO for a boat company? Or, oh, actually, it's funny you mentioned this model of boat. I actually did marketing for a boat company that sold boats just like this, and we helped them sell out of old stock before the new ones came out by ranking them highly in Google. He was saying that these new boats are incredible. What do you think of yours? Now, I need to warn you, this is a learnt skill that requires a lot of practice. There is a fine line between having genuine conversations and completely derailing a conversation. Another goal you should be aiming for in any conversation is to go out of your way to find things that you can help them with by providing genuine value without any expectation of return. If you make this one of the primary goals of any conversation you have, you will naturally start to ask questions that guide them to where you can actually provide them value. And this is why having a regular cadence of contact with your newly formed relationships is very, very important, because you want to provide this value over an extended period of time. Now, you don't want to be corny about this. You really just need to check in from time to time with people to see how they're going and if you can provide any more value to them. One of the practical things I do is in every conversation I have, I try and make mental notes of what people are up to, so genuinely listening to people. And then what I do is when I follow up with them, I just simply ask how that thing went, or how did they go with that thing, or if they need any help with that. It's amazing how much people appreciate genuine value. You also need to make sure that you go out there and do it right in the first place. This doesn't only mean attending events and attending local sports games and card games and lunchrooms and things like that. That should be a given after watching up until this point. I mean more what you do to increase your connections when you're actually at these events. Be honest. How many people that you see in this kind of capacity actually know what you do? But more importantly, what they do and how they spend their time. Have you ever actually asked these questions? How will you ever build those important friend-to-friend connections and those genuine relationships if you don't engage at the very place that all these successful people say it happens? What I personally try and do is have genuine conversations with one person at every event. If you just put all of your energy into one person, it really helps you to focus on what they're saying and how you can actually provide value to them. And that will help you with every other point I've spoken about in this video. And finally, you need to have building your network at the back of your mind in every conversation you have. It's an easy one to forget, but if you really do want to become ultra successful, you need to have the mindset of expanding your network. Trust me when I say, if you go into every conversation with wanting to learn more about them, explaining what you do by weaving it into stories in organic conversations, feeding relationships by providing value without any expectation of return and maintaining contact, and focusing your time on building one relationship at a time, you will not only build a powerhouse network of people that are genuinely willing to help you, but you will also have fulfilling and sincere professional relationships. So that's it, guys. Anytime you're at an event where you could potentially build your network and relationships, bring this video back up, go through the 5 things, and then hit the ground running. Okay, so if being goal-orientated and having a network are 2 infinity stones, you know that there's 3 more elements that we need to become super successful individuals. So if you're serious about learning what else I found out by watching these 100 super successful people, then you need to watch this video next. Also, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because sometimes, as you know, YouTube can wig out and I hate for you to miss this information. See you in the next video.